Nurgle doesn't have the most conventional playstyle you'll see in a Total War game. Their military buildings work on a cycle-based system instead of the usual tiered upgrades, they rely on plagues to tip the scales in their favour, and of course, they love their corruption. Well, today I'm going to show you how they work and why they're one of the strongest races you'll come across in Warhammer 3. Let's start by going through their racial mechanics. First up, those aforementioned cyclical buildings. Factions under Nurgle have a unique approach to their military buildings. Instead of the usual tiers you upgrade as the settlement increases in size, they instead go through cycles as the game goes on. You pay a one-time fee of infections to build the base level, and as the turns go on, they progress through the cycle to the next tier. You still need to upgrade settlement size to unlock the higher tiers of these cycles, but you never need to feed them more resources. You also have the option to spend infections to rush cycles to the next tier, but I'd only advise doing this when you desperately need units or are flush with infections, as in the early game they can be fairly hard to come by in large quantities. And if you're wondering how to get infections, it's mainly battles and buildings. This cyclical system also changes how their recruitment works. Instead of simply unlocking the ability to recruit units, each cycle instead adds certain units to your recruitment pool, and this is shared faction-wide instead of being limited to the local area. You can then instantly recruit units, but at a lower HP level, so instead of spending turns recruiting, you may need to do the same but just healing. This system really changes your approach to building up your provinces, as you no longer need to worry about having military spread throughout your empire, since you can place them wherever and be able to recruit your units wherever your armies are. You're also able to spread plagues around the map, bringing bonuses to Nurgle factions and debuffs to everyone else. These plagues have 3 symptoms, and you must choose them from a randomized web in the plague crafting menu. You unlock new symptoms to start from by simply using them in plagues, and the web randomizes every 3 plagues. Each time this randomization occurs, there will also be a number of blessed symptoms. These offer one-time bonus effects if used in a plague, so are well worth considering to get some extra bang for your bug. Once symptoms are chosen, you can tweak 3 variables at the cost of more infections. You can increase the chance of plague spreading, increase their duration, and reduce the number of turns affected enemies gain immunity after the plague passes. Once everything is ready, you can send your plague out into the world by one of 3 methods. You can choose to infect one of your own armies or settlements, or you can choose to summon a cultist hero whose sole action will be to spread that plague to any foreign target. Who and where you deploy these plagues really depends on the plague itself and the effects that you've chosen for it. Like many races, Nurgle's faction spreads their flavour of corruption wherever they go. They do this via the usual methods of lords and hero skills, buildings and commandments, alongside some methods unique to them such as their plagues. Owned regions with high levels of Nurgle corruption benefit from a large number of buffs and bonuses. All non-chaos armies will suffer attrition in their lands, their demonic units have an increased chance of returning after being destroyed in battle and come back with more health, they receive a huge bonus to control, their recruitment cost is heavily reduced and the health of recruited units is increased, and lastly, plagues have an increased chance of spreading. In summary, it's well worth spreading Nurgle corruption wherever you go, but in particular in your own provinces to keep both military and infrastructure performing well. Lastly, we have the Unholy Manifestations and the Great Game, and corruption also interacts with these. The Unholy Manifestations are a set of 4 abilities that unlock as Nurgle's corruption spreads throughout the map from yours and all other Nurgle factions. Their specific abilities are a recruitment cost reduction and recruitment health increase, which is very useful when you want to raise a large army and get it moving quickly. This is especially powerful if you combine it with the effects of high corruption. An increase to the chances of plague spreading in a single province, which is powerful for preparing a province for invasion, especially when you have a foothold or an army to spread from. Massively increased growth and construction cost reductions, which is of course extremely useful for quickly building up settlements, which is always super strong, especially considering how expensive the advanced military buildings can be. And the ability to instantly heal a target army to full, which is great for getting a brand new army ready to go in a single turn, or healing up one that's already taken a beating in battle but is needed again quickly. If Nurgle is the dominant corruption in the world, they will rise to ascendancy in the Great Game. This empowers each of the 4 abilities, increasing the power of their effects significantly. The Great Game is a little bit hard to actively work towards since it's map-wide and relies on AI factions of the same race doing well alongside you, but if Plague Papa smiles on you, then make use of the effects whilst you can for some very powerful bonuses. Lastly, their commandments. Foster Cults is great for farming infections and topping up on corruption. Plague God's Pasture is useful when spreading plagues around the province. Plague God's Greenhouse is great for recruitment, and Plague God's Nursery is useful for rushing growth. Now we come to the 3 factions you can play as when choosing Nurgle. First up, we have the Poxmakers of Nurgle, led by Kugath Plaguefather. Kugath is the quality over quantity plague crafter. Whenever his web of symptoms resets, he gains an additional blessed symptom, allowing him to craft more frequent empowered plagues, and this only gets more powerful as the game goes on. His faction is relentless, with fast growth and increased recruitment health, so he can get moving even faster. His army can use plagues at a reduced cost, including summoning cultists. Alongside this, they increase the chance of plague spreading to and from them, and they spread Nurgle corruption wherever they go. With Kugath, you want to really focus on using those empowered symptoms to your advantage. Whilst it is random which options will be blessed, you should always be able to find somewhere that can benefit from the effects, whether that's faster growth on your settlements or improved stats in battle. Also, be sure to make use of cultists from Kugath if you want to spread them to others. That 25% cost reduction compared to anything but Kugath is significant, so you should be spreading from him as often as possible. Outside of plagues, he's best using the demonic units with the increased health and recruitment, but just be cautious of losing them in battle with the whole disintegration thing. Next up, we have the Maggot host, led by Tamerkan, the Maggot Lord. Tamerkan doesn't have access to the unholy manifestations, and instead has its own unique mechanic known as Tamerkan's Chieftains. This mechanic adds a set of 6 chieftains from various areas of chaos that you can recruit into your faction by spending dominance. This is earned by winning battles and specific events, and is then spent on unlocking these chieftains and making use of their units and abilities. Each chieftain comes with their own battle powers, items and traits that make them useful at a specific role, such as charging with cavalry for Kazg the Befouled. You can also spend dominance to gain units from their host faction for use in your armies, or you can make use of their abilities that offer all kinds of bonuses and effects depending on the chieftain. To unlock their more powerful abilities and units, you need to increase their fealty, and this is done by performing specific actions displayed on each chieftain's page. The higher the level of fealty, the more powerful abilities you unlock and the more of their units you can make use of. Whilst you don't need to put every single chieftain into Tamerkan's army, you will have a pretty damn powerful army if you do. Aside from this, his faction's armies are always on the move, so gain some bonuses to their movement range, and all non-demonic units in the faction are summoned in with more health to help them get to work faster. Tamerkan himself is nearly impossible to keep down with a near instant recovery if he should fall in battle, and he's best used with non-demonic units to increase their damage output and fortitude to leadership sapping abilities. In my opinion, Tamerkan is really more of a warrior of chaos than a Nurgle faction in terms of playstyle, so it doesn't hurt to treat him that way. His chieftains demand him to do all kinds of actions and battle all kinds of factions to improve their fealty, so try to level them up as quickly as possible to make use of their more powerful effects. I tried to focus on them one at a time to maintain the focus and ensure you're getting some benefit quickly, but with the battle targets being so varied, you sometimes just have to play for what's in front of you. And don't sleep on the abilities and units, some of them can be extremely powerful. Chieftains aside, you should be taking settlements despite the Warriors of Chaos playstyle, just make sure to focus on mortal units to make the most of the faction's effects. And lastly, we have the Tallyman of Pestilence, led by Epidemius. And he's of course the quantity over quality plaguecrafter. He wants to infect as many foreign armies and settlements as he possibly can to fill up the tally of pestilence. Doing so provides his faction with powerful bonuses and empowers your plagues with strong effects on foreign targets. You'll need plenty of infections to achieve high tiers, so it's a good idea to build lots of fungi of defilement buildings to keep them coming outside of battling. To aid with this mechanic, his plague cultists gain improved movement range, so use them as much as you can to spread the love far and wide. He's also the plague bearer specialist of Nurgle, earning them much faster and recruiting them at a more powerful level. His army should always target enemies affected by plagues to grant him regeneration and everyone else bonuses alongside any effects of the plague. There isn't really much more to Epidemius than plague spam, but you can time it tactically to ensure you have those higher tiers. If you simply burn infections as fast as you gain them, you'll likely not make it to the high levels. If you instead save them up for a few turns and then spam a few one after the other, you're far more likely to fill up that tally. Just make sure you spread your cultists out to ensure your plagues aren't cross-contaminating, and tweak the infectivity and duration settings to optimize for spreading and sticking around. Plagues aside, just spam plague bearers and bring some extra damage and you can't go wrong. And that is everything there is to know about Nurgle's campaign in 2025. Let me know any questions you have in the comments below and I'll do my best to help you out. Like, subscribe, and if you want more Warhammer 3 faction guides, then check out this video all about how to play Cathay.